here. Okay, any questions so far? We discussed about the Python. I covered Python, and also I started discussing about the R also, right? The data types and data structures. R and Python is more or less same when it comes to the data type and data structures. Not much big difference. Only thing is, in Python they say string, here we call it as a character for the string data type, and the Boolean data type we for the logical operators like the true and false, right? It is in caps letter. Only the syntax difference is there between these two. Even R is also interpreted programming language, right? R is also an interpreted programming language. No need to compile the program before you execute it. The difference between interpreter and compiled program, we know that, right? So the interpreted programming language, it will execute the commands line by line, whereas the compiled programming language, it will execute the entire code all at once, right? So that is the difference between these two. And so any good news with respect to the assignments? Karthik had submitted the assignments. Karthik, I will send out the feedback sometime tomorrow morning, okay, by 11:30 a.m. I just reviewed, I had a cursory look at your assignments, okay, and I have some observations. I will send you the comments. And
Okay.
also I could see that now you are familiar with the date data type also, how to work with the date data type, right? So
Yes,
which
sir.
package that has to be used in order to perform date related operations? Can you tell me quickly?
Date, date
Python.
time,
Excellent, right? Date
before
time.
date time.
We have
Plus,
date time package, right? So using which we can extract the date, month, year, even the day, Monday, Tuesday, or something like that, from the date column. Okay, so that is also covered as part of the exercises. That's the reason I urge you all to start work on the exercises. Next week there will be a small test. Don't worry. Okay, and you can start. Online, right? So I will also be joining the call. We will you can start solving those problems whatever I give it, right? So that you will gain more confident. But that is not enough. By the way, next weekend we will be starting the machine learning algorithm, okay? So we'll start the machine learning algorithm, and that time as part of the machine learning algorithm we will see how to solve the what is that how to perform data pre-processing extensively, right? So what are the data pre-processing common tasks that we do it, right, in any machine learning program? I guess most of you are working with the data. So what kind of operations, or what kind of ETL transformations that we are you have done it so far? Can someone tell me? Even the testing point of view also, right? You test the source system data, and whatever the transformations applied by the users, you will be testing it. Am I correct? So what are common data pre-processing tasks that that we can perform? Just on top of your head, whatever is there, right? You just tell me. Or Karthik, why don't you tell me? Data pre-processing, common tasks. Data analysis, we know, let's say the data is readily available. In the sense, we have the processed data. It is not a raw data. We have a processed data. With the processed data, we perform analysis using the data visualization related packages, or sometimes we use some tables, right? We use some table data, and we store the data, output the data to a CSV file, and with that CSV file you can import it in Excel file, and you can generate some kind of chart, or you can store the images which you generated as part of your charts, right? When you plot the charts, you would have generated charts. That charts you can save it as an image file. Simply you can copy paste it, right? So from your notepad to your PowerPoint, you can copy paste it. Fine. So okay. So the simple thing is, right? We perform exploratory data analysis. See, next week, correct. To start with the machine, before we start the machine learning algorithm, we will start with the data science life cycle. We have something called CRISP DM. Okay, CRISP DM. Right. So once I explain that, you will get to know. So it is somewhat similar to your software development life cycle. Right. So in the case of software development life cycle, we are no longer using a waterfall methodology. We are using iterative incremental model. Right. In the case of business intelligence, or you take any applications, not like a waterfall model. Right. So we complete the entire project and then we give it to the customer. Right after delivering the end product, when we deliver it to the customer, let's say to produce the end product, it takes 1 year time, right? So after 1 year, if you share the product to the customer, and if they come back with and if they find lot of surprises, in the sense most of their requirements are not met, let's say, right, in that case it is a major issue. Again, they have to wait for another 6 months or 8 years or 1 year. Time to market is very critical. That is the reason why nowadays we are using agile methodologies, right? Iterative incremental methodology, something like that, right? Even the case of the data science, right? More or less it is same only. Okay. But when it comes to data science, what we do is we define the problem statement, and also right after the problem statement definition, we define the hypothesis, we formulate the hypothesis. Just give me a second, I'm getting you up. Hello, Karthik. Yeah, sorry, you guys are able to hear me, right? So okay, right? So after the problem statement, right, or after the once you define the problem statement, the next step is we formulate the hypothesis. That we will discuss it next or the upcoming weekend with some examples, so that you will get to know in which phase of the data science life cycle what we do. Right? Usually what we do is, once we understand the business problem or business statement, the next step is we try to convert that into analytical problem. Right? So and then the next step is we formulate the hypothesis. After you formulate the hypothesis, the next step is you identify the source systems and identify the attributes or features that are required for you to train your model. Okay, right? So before you train your model, let's say you identify the data, or let's say you are lucky, the customer has given you the data up front, plain vanilla. They gave you the data set and they are saying this is the data set, you are supposed to use it to train your model. Then you are lucky. And the next step is what you do is you start training your model, but you cannot use the data as it is, because the machine learning algorithms that dictates the data supposed to be, whatever the data we are supposed to be, whatever the data we use to train our model supposed to be in the specific format. Machine learning model should be able to consume those format. Okay, so in that case you need to convert the data in line with the format expected by the machine learning algorithm. Right? So what kind of in that case, what kind of transformation that are we going to do it before we train our model? Simple common sense related tasks, like we check whether we have duplicate data or do we have missing values in my data set. If I have a missing value in my data set, we perform data imputation. We discussed about data imputation also. I have given you one exercise, right? A bit complex one. right? So how many of you completed the data imputation exercise also? The next one is the data imputation. We perform the data imputation. Okay. The next step is we see, are there any outliers are there in my data set. If there are any outliers, then we need to address them. We need to fix them. Just because I have an outlier in my data set, blindly we cannot remove the data. We have to follow some the technology or technique to remove those or address those kind of outliers, and any redundant data, duplicate data, we need to remove it. And also in case of the data type, when it comes to data type, different packages, when it comes to Python, when it reads any data file, if it finds any character related data, blindly it converts that as an object data type. Object data type is okay, but for the date column also it converts that as a object data type. Object data type is somewhat similar to the character or string data type. So in that case we need to do the type conversion explicitly. We need to convert the date column into date data type. And how can we convert the date column into date data type? For example, I have an order date column, the data, but my pandas package assigned object data type to that order date column. In that case, we have to explicitly convert as a date data type. How did we do this? Karthik, you remember, you asked me, right? You sent me a question. How did you convert that one? In pandas.
To date, the PD dot to date time.
Yeah, so excellent, right? PD dot. You need to prefix with the to underscore date time function by pandas, right? PD. PD stands for pandas. The pandas alias is PD. PD dot date and date time. Inside the parenthesis, you need to give the the column, right? The column, order date or something. It converts that as a date time data type. Date time data type. And then you can perform any kind of date related manipulations or operations using the date time package. Date time package has a lot of functions, inbuilt functions in it. So that, right, there are some functions like dt dot days and day, what is it, weekday. It gives you the weekday also. For example, if it is Tuesday data, right, if the transaction happened on Tuesday, it says it is on the third day, right, on that week, third, because it considers Sunday as a 0th day, right? 0, 1, 2, second, week of day of the week, right? So day of the week, and days, and even day also, Monday, Tuesday also you can extract it using that. In OR also we have something called as underscore date function, using which you can convert the date data type. If the data type, if the column name is, let's say, order date, and or cannot understand the date related strings that you stored it in that column as date, okay, explicitly, right? So you need to explicitly convert that character order date column data into date data type. Okay, so for that, as dot date function is available, using which you can convert the date data type. Okay, so that is the one you can do it. So once you convert the date data type, you can perform week on week, date, week on week, or the day on right. So one day to day analysis, right? So what is the sales today revenue and what is the sales yesterday, something like that. Okay, you can perform all kind of analysis. I hope you would have seen the link which I sent it, right? It is very, somehow some extent it is helpful, right? Because what kind of analysis that you perform in the real time scenario, right? So small analysis, how do you perform, right? I sent out one link. I don't know. So anyhow, what we will do is now we will start play around with R. I will try to compare R with the Python commands, so that can help you to recollect what is the equivalent command in Python also. Okay, because already I explained you, but still, right? If I compare both the R with Python, it'll be a refresher for you to understand the equivalent command in Python. So okay, so we discussed about these kind of data type, right? So the type conversion and matrix, how to create a matrix and array in Python, and those kind of things we discussed it. And also we discussed the difference between array and matrix, right? And also we discussed about the factor data type. In Python, the equivalent is category, right? So you need to use a category data type. For example, in Python, I have a data frame, right? Data frame dot gender. This is how I can query a specific column from my data frame, right? So the equivalent command is this way. Here as type within the parenthesis, we can give category. Category. This is equivalent to your factor data type. What is a factor data type? It's a categorical variable. Let's say we know the domain, we have the domain knowledge. With that domain knowledge, we know which columns are candidate for what? Candidate for categorical variables. So in that case, what we do is we'll go ahead and convert those columns that are candidate for categorical variable, right? Using factor function. Okay, so okay, right. Going back to my question, the data pre-processing. What kind of data pre-processing that we do it, right? So we do the type conversion, everything. Okay, and also we do something like the one-hot encoding. We perform kind of one-hot encoding. So we'll discuss about one-hot encoding also a little later. Okay. In today's session itself, I'll explain you, don't worry. And before that, let's try to, before we moving further, yeah.
Filling out the missing values also comes under this pre-processing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
So we are updating that missing value with some average value, right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, we are not blindly updating the average value of that column. Supposing I have a quantity column, okay, or price column is the best example, right? If I take the average of the price column and if I update that average value of the price to any product, it is illogical.
Yeah.
Right? So what we do is we use some logic. That's what I discussed as part of the data imputation session, right? I threw some ideas, simple common sense. For example, you can see, right? Let's say I have a column called product name and I have a column called category. Based on some business logic, we update and I have a column called quantity and I have a column called price and right, that's all. So using quantity and price, we can find out the value of that order or invoice. Let's assume that there is no tax, so nothing. Okay, let's take a simple example. In that case, let's in category, I have some category name, category A, and the product name is something like this one, something like let's say cleaning products, right? Cleaning products. The category is cleaning products, and then let's say Dettol. Okay, and Dettol and the quantities we sold 5. And the price of each Dettol, let's say it's going to be 15 rupees. Okay, these are the data is available. Supposing, right, I have another record, another transaction, I could see the price is missing. It is NAN, right? So how can you? But I cannot take the average of the price blindly, and if I replace this one with the average or mean price here, it doesn't make sense, right? Because some products the cost will be very high, some products the cost will be very, very less. But if you take average, there could be chances it can be, the value can be skewed, right? So this,
Yeah.
or it is irrelevant to this one. Supposing if you put Dettol as per your price column average, it comes around 154, right? So if you, the average is 154, just because the average is 154, we put it here, it will not be valid one. It is completely illogical. So what logic we can use it? What we do is, one simple way of doing is, you check whether this product, the Dettol is already, is there in your data set. Do a lookup, right? So you do a lookup in this data set, and then you check if there are any other records are there. For example, this is a record. For this record I have NAN. What I do is, I will just simply query category product name where the product name is Dettol, right? I get these two records. In that case, what I do is, since in the other transaction I have the price for the Dettol, I simply take this, I can put it here. Or let's say, if you argue with me, even for the Dettol also, the price, you take any product, the price can change over a period of time. Let's say 17 rupees. Based on the demand also, right, the price can increase, or sometimes the price can decrease. Okay. So for example, this is the 17 rupees now. What you do is, in that case, you need to do a group by here, right? Sum of the, the average of this price, group by category and product. You all agree with me or not, right? So with this average price, if you can update here, it makes sense,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
This is how you can do it. Simple logic is, okay, I have a transaction, I have only two transactions are there. One transaction has the value for the price, other transaction I don't have. Simply you take this price and update it here. But this is also not the right way of doing it. Earlier I said, right, you take the average of these two and you can apply it here. You can update it here, but you cannot take the mean on the column which has a missing value. For that, you need to use na.rm equal to true. That's what we discussed, right? na.rm function will ignore the record or the column which has a missing value, and it will compute the average for the remaining value. Since we have only one record, it will say 15 only here. You can replace that one, this one with this value. Supposing I don't have any other transactions are available in my data set. How can I update the price here? Supposing you have the value column here. The value is 60, right? So you can use some logic like right, value divided by quantity. And don't debate with me. Okay, what about the GST and the discount or offer, right? If you have that one, you need to subtract it, right? You need to subtract it and then you need to do it. So there the logic is little bit complex, but in real time that is how we do it. Okay, so what we do is, in this case, the value is available, quantity is available. Value divided by quantity will give you the price. Okay, so but if you, let's say, what if you have discount? Let's say your discount is 10 rupees upfront, right? Or 2% something. The 2% boils down to 10. So what will happen is, we cannot say the value is the value is after discount, right? The value could be after discount. So in that case, what you need to do is, you need to find out the discount percentage, right? The how you computed the discount, and then what you need to do is, you need to derive the value, actual value, right? So for example, you subtracted 10 from the the total value. So in that case, you need to add these two things together, 70, and then 70 divided by 5. So that is the one will give you the price. This is how you, in the real time scenario, will be writing the condition based average. We perform condition based data imputation. Another thing is, you need to make sure that whether the value column or whichever column that you are using it to perform the the data imputation, you need to Yeah, so this is okay. So what you do is, right. So the value column or the discount column and value column, right? You need to add this thing, and then you need to divide this one. You need to get the price. Sometimes it is not that easier. It will be very difficult, right? You need to have some kind of complex logic. You need to validate with the business stakeholders, and then you perform the updation. Sometimes, okay, even the value is also NAN, and sorry, not the discount. The value is NAN, and the discount I have some percentage. Let's 10 rupees got deducted. Still it is difficult to find out, right? So discount you have given 2%, but value you should be knowing the value, right? Based on the value, or you can find out. So this, for this category, for this product, if listen, if the customer purchase more than 5, right, 5 or more than 5, then they are eligible for 2% discount on the total value. So in that case, right, so the customer, they will be having some kind of master table, something like price master. The price master column will have the category, still it will have the category and subcategory, and you have the price, unit price, right? So unit price, and you have something else called the effective date. So here also they maintain the effective start date, effective end date. Because the price can vary from time to time. Started because of the dynamics of the market, because of the dynamics of the price quoted by our competitors, right? So that's how, right? So here you need to do a lookup in this table. If you have a price table already available, then what you do is, your job is very simple. You just do a lookup for the Dettol, which is falling in the cleaning products. You need to go and check it here, but it is not straightforward way of doing the lookup. Again, you need to write some kind of filtering criteria. For example, the day when you generate, here you have some order date also, right? You have some kind of order date. See how it happens. Let's say the order date is this date, today's date, okay, and this product, I just copy paste. I think most of you would have faced this issue, right? You do this kind of thing. Sys date is, it's not a sys date here. Let's in 15th, no sorry, this is product category, and this is the product name, and then the unit price is, let's $10, 10 rupees, and effective start date is, let's 1st Jan 2021 to effective end date is let's say 30 March 2021. And again, what they did, so for this Dettol product, the price 10 is applicable only, this price, right, this price 10 rupees is applicable between this period. So from effective April 1 to till date, right? So here they don't update anything, okay? That means if this column has null value, that means we don't know the end date. So but you need to consider the current price, because today is April, right? 1st April to till this one, right? You need to use this price. For example, this is $12.
So until the due date is changed, we will consider the till date.
Exactly, right? So you need to do a lookup. Simple idea is, you need to check whether the price is available for Dettol, which falls under category cleaning products, in the master table. If it is available, right? But again, so it is available, but 2 different times the price got changed. So you need to compare this date, sys date. This sys date falls between which date range here, right? This sys date is, today's date is 17/4. Hence, it is falling between these two range, right? Or they can define it like this also. For example, let's say hypothetically 31 May 2021. Right? So 14, today is 17, right? 17 April falls between these two dates. Hence, you need to. So all you need to do is just check whether the product, right, product name, so the category comma product name is equivalent to Dettol, where the sys date is between these two dates, right? Starting sys date is this sys date is equivalent to, or sys date is less than some date and greater than some date, and this one, right, between these two dates, whether my sys date is falling in. So in that case, you need to take this price. See, it is a little bit complex, isn't it? So data imputation, though we say, right, the theory most of the time it says you take the average of the column and update. It's not straightforward like how you think. You may have to, do a lookup in other table, and also write some logic to take the most current price from this day, because you are generating the order today, right? Or your order date is today. Today someone ordered, but unfortunately the data got deleted. But if you know the price, you are all set. 12, right? You can derive the value, right? So 5 12s or 60, and they've given discount, but discount value is there, right? So you need to, after subtracting this one, you need to specify the value here. Okay, so you need to do some kind of arithmetic operation here. Okay, so this is called your business logic. The business logic simply take the category and product name and current order date, and then go and check it here whether this date is falling in between 1 Jan and 30 Jan, this one, or sorry, here what it is, this date is less than this one, or sys date is greater than this and less than this, right? Sys date is greater than your effective start date. Obviously this one is greater than this one, but the effective end date is sys date is less than your current month, right? So it is not March, hence it is falling in this range. Hence you need to pick up this price and then you need to perform. This is called kind of, right, a condition based or business rule. You need to use some business logic or rule based on which you need to update it. Supposing I don't have the price for this product in my price master, what you will do? So you need to check with your application owner, right? So the business stakeholder, which price can I use it? Even the price master, it is not available because this product has been launched recently. Somehow the new product price is not reflecting in my master also, but we sold it to the customers. But unfortunately, when the data we got it from the system, it has some missing value in it. Okay, so in that case, obviously I have to do a lookup here. Okay, right? So if it is not there, we have to check with the respective stakeholder. That's all, right? See, here we hardly have 2 records. You take any big box retailer, right? So they have billions of records, billions of products they sell it. Okay, and also the prices are varying for each and every, most of the products the prices are varying from time to time, right? So you have something effective start date and date, you need to go and check it and then you need to fill it. This is how you need to do it. And you just watch my the previous video, right? The missing column. So we use isNull function or isNA function to find out the missing value. And also we can use drop-NA function. Drop-NA we cannot use it, right? Blindly we cannot, because we have price master table is available. In that case we can use some business logic to perform data imputation here. So we have another technique called K nearest neighbor. KNN, we have something called KNN imputation. We will discuss it when I explain about the machine learning algorithm, K nearest neighbor. It's a very simple algorithm in machine learning. Any 10th standard student can also understand this one. Okay. After explaining that algorithm, I will help you out how you can perform imputation using KNN. So KNN is, in simple term, it checks the identical record. It checks each and every column with every other column. Okay, and then which one is closer, right? So that is how it is doing. See, something like let's we have a group of 10 customers are there. We take 10 customers data. If I ask you guys to find out of these 10 customers data, can you tell me which all customers are high income, medium income, low income group? How can you tell? Just some common sense. Use some common sense. Don't think too much also. Don't think about mathematical thing. Simply, how can you find out? You simply go and check the income, right? So income, and it is a banking customer, right? The income is fine, but how much EMI is paying it every month? He has, let's a customer income is 100,000, take home is 100,000, but he has two loans, EMIs, right? He pays 60,000 every month. Then we cannot say is because we wanted to target, we want to do some kind of target marketing. We want to find out which customers are potential customers, so that we can send out, or we can call them, or we can make a cold call to convince them to go for a loan. Already if a person is paying 2 or 3 loans, why should I make a cold call to him, right? So what I want to do is I want to do some kind of segmentation. So in that case, income alone is not important, right? So we'll look at the income column, and also we'll see is he having any passive income column, right? Any secondary source of income. Okay, so he is owning 3 houses. From that house he is getting rental close to let's say 80,000, right? So though the primary income is not that good, that doesn't mean he is not a. So you need to look at various columns, or let's say let's take a simple way of segmenting is, we'll see the income column, primary income, secondary income, and then we will check whether he has any EMI. Let's say a customer primary income is 100,000, secondary income nothing, rest of the column 0. And similar time, let's say 3 customers are, these 3 customers are potential customers, high potential customers, right? And also, see, don't argue with me. How about age, right? Because if the person is too old, if I give him a loan, also risky, right? Okay, fine. Let's say these guys are middle-aged guys. Their income is 100,000, 3 persons' income is somewhat closer to each other. Identical records, right? Somewhat closer. The K&N imputation is doing that way, right? Which records are right, but it compares column to column. But K&N imputation requires all the column to be a numerical column. If you have a categorical variable, you need to convert that as a numerical variable. That's all. For example, you have gender column. Put 1 for male and do encoding for female as 0. And you have another column like number of children. Right? So you can use 1, 2, 3, something like that. If a customer has 0 means he has no kids, and a person has 1 kid, another person has 2 kids, another person has 3 kids. Right? Okay, a person has no kids, and the person has no EMI commitment, and what is his income? Right? Take people with the similar profile. We do, this is called profiling, okay? And then what we do is, these are all the customers or high potential customers because they don't have any prior commitment, and their income is also very good, right? So they can afford to pay the EMIs. We do some kind of, we compare the person's age and income, one person income with another person income, and the age with another person. So we group these kind of people into a single bucket, and another bucket is, okay, this person is medium, this person has a loan commitment, but given his salary, still he is eligible for a loan, those kind of people are falling in another bucket, right? Likewise, we can do manual profiling, but manually, can you do profiling for 0.2 million customers, right? That's where we use algorithms, or we use pandas packages to perform any kind of analysis, right? Simple analysis is sufficient, but the KNN algorithm, what it does is, it will try to find out the identical observations, okay? And then, so you take for example, in this case, right, here you have NAN, you have let's in your company they don't maintain any price master data set. So what you do is, you will have to do some kind of, vaguely you have to find out, instead of vaguely updating it, you are doing this way, right? So for example, 1 March 2021, someone ordered something, right? Order date, and they ordered this one, and that day the price is $10. So what you do is, in the second record, you pick up this, since already you have the price in this record for this product which belong to this category. It is your job is very easy, you can update it. But again, it's a transactional data, it has a lot of data in it, right? So what you do is, simply do a lookup on this one, and then you can update it here. So again, the partitioning technique and all, right? Partitioning, they do data level partitioning. So in that case, selecting the records, even though you have too much of data, selecting the data is much faster in the case of data level. If they did any kind of partitioning, right, you can do it. Fine. So the next one is, this is how you do some kind of data imputation. If there is no price master, you will have to rely on this one, transactional data only. You need to check if there are any product, if there are any other transaction which has similar product and category, if it has a price in it. If it has price in it, we can use it, right? So $10, right? So you can replace it. But the KNN imputation, right, what it does is, instead of doing all these things, it checks the date and date are different, little bit slightly different, or no, yeah, it is different, right? Today's date is different from this one, right? So it will check, okay, these two are very closer, and these two are very closer, and the quantity is also somewhat closer, and the value is also somewhat closer, hence the price could be 10, right? So nearest neighbor, it will go and check the nearest neighbor, and then what it does is, it will simply replace that value, replace this value with this value, right? So KNN imputation can also be used, but the disadvantage of KNN imputation is, it computes the distance for one single record with the rest of the records. Supposing in this transaction table, I have, let's say, 35 million records are there. Yes, I can use a Dask package. The performance is faster, but still, why should I waste the resources, right? Why should I strain my resources blindly just because some Dask package is available? It does the parallel processing, right? Still, we have to use some common sense. The problem with KNN imputation is, for this single record, it computes the distance between every other records in this data set. For one record, it has to compute the distance between this record and this record. Likewise, right, 35 million records, it has to compute the distance. What is the distance between this record and this record? This record with other record, and then it will take the nearest neighbor, and within the neighbor, whichever values are somewhat closer, it will take the average and it will put it here. So you can use KNN imputation if the volume of the data is less. The volume of the data is too high, then don't use KNN imputation, because it is computation intensive algorithm. Okay, You cannot use this one. Anyhow, we'll discuss about the KNN algorithm as part of machine learning topic. So that time you'll be able to understand how the distance are computed. We have something called Euclidean distance, Manhattan distance, Mahalanobis distance. Likewise, many distance metrics are available, using which we can compute the distance between one record to another record. But the problem with the KNN imputation is it has to compute the distance between the source record with the every other record in your data set. That is the painful thing, right? So it is not viable solution. But if the data volume is less, you can probably leave it, or instead of writing the complex logic, right? If the business logic is too complex, in that case, you can rely on KNN imputation, right? But if the volume of the data is less, it is fine. If the volume of the data is too high, better you can write the business logic, like I said, right? If the master table is available, do a lookup and compare the order date is falling in between these two range, whichever range it falls, right? So supposing this order date is somewhat between, let's say, 15th March, and then this price is applicable, right? So you need to check in the where condition, the data is falling in between these two, the order date is falling between this, and then you pick up and then you can update. That's all. Or if the business complex is the business logic is way complex, right? And if the data volume is less, then you can go for KNN imputation. And there are other techniques also available. We will discuss it as part of this one. Okay, this is one thing. Okay, as part of data pre-processing, we do type conversion, and then there are some kind of data cleaning. For example, in your price column, right? Simply you cannot convert it. So type conversion, when you will do, supposing let's say I have store manager, not store manager, let's say an order date, right? Order date is it is something like, in your Excel sheet you have given something like 01 March 2021, right? So but what Pandas does is it will assign this value with which one? The object data type. Even in R, we have something called data frame. Okay, the data frame, what it does is when it reads any string data type, it assigns that as a character data type. Okay, you need to but we know, because we are the domain expert and we are the tech savvy, we know very well this is not the string data type. But if you use it as a string value, right, if you don't do any transformation, it is of no use. You cannot perform any kind of analysis. You cannot perform any fine granular analysis, right? If they want you to find out March 2021 first quarter sales with March 2020 first quarter sales, right? Quarter on quarter analysis between 2021, it is very tough, right? So hence, what you need to do, you need to convert that as explicitly as a date data type. Very simple. This is fine. Okay, we have as underscore date function is available, using which I can convert it. What is the big deal? Fine. Let's say I have a sales column. In the sales column, what happened? My Pandas or data frame for the sales column, it assigned character data type or object data type. This is object, or in Pandas object, in or character data type. So now you are wondering why sales column supposed to be a float data type, right? Numeric data type. Why it assign character? When you do the data exploration on this column, right? Somewhere you found, oh man, somewhere they put something like dollar 123 dot 40 something like that. You have dollar and dot and all is there, because of which the entire cell somewhere, right, let's say, oddly 20 records, they put it like this. The rest of the values for that sales column are fine, but oddly few records they put it like this. They use this dollar and dot and all. Because of dollar and dot, let's say oddly 8 records randomly you can see dollar and dot, because of which what happens, the entire sales column data frame or pandas data frame, right, it assigns character data type or object data type. So now what you need to do is you need to remove the dollar, you need to remove the dot also or something like that, right? So $1 comma 1 2 3 or let's 12,000 and 1 or 2, you need to remove dollar, you need to remove comma also, right? Dot is okay, the dollar and comma you have to remove it. This is some kind of cleaning, right? And some other cases we ran into some issues, right? Somehow some special character got mixed up with this numeric values, something like that, right? Some hash, some dot, something like that, okay? Some unknown values got mixed up with this numerical value, because of which also, because in the past, right, when we worked with the JPMC, what happened, everything was in the numerical format only, right? So we had close to 1 point some million records were there. When we queried the stock value, right, column, everywhere it is numerical data only, and we were wondering why the hell it assigned this one. And then when we tried to convert that as the number data type, it was not getting converted successfully. Right, to convert the number into string column into number data type, is it possible to convert that? For example, x equal to, I have something like 10. If you convert this as dot integer, it will get converted as dot integer of x. Let's say you have something called x1 here, and if I put x1 here and if I execute this one, it will work, right? But if you have a mix of dollar and if you do like this, what will happen? It will assign NA here. It will gets converted, because since dollar, alpha numeric, dollar or A, right, any alpha, this is called alpha numeric. You have some alphabet along with the number, this is called alphanumeric data type. In that case, if you convert this as a number data type, it will not get converted, right? It will introduce NA, it will convert. In this case, right, it will assign NA to it. When we did the integer conversion on the string data type, to avoid assigning the character data type to that column, right, we landed this kind of issue. So what is the way out? So only way out is, right, we use Notepad++. If you guys have not yet used Notepad++, please, I would suggest you to install Notepad++. It is very much helpful, because if you want to select a specific column from a data set, and then if you want to copy paste it, it is very helpful, okay? But if you use the Notepad, you cannot select specific columns data alone and then you cannot put it somewhere else. Notepad++ is very helpful, and also for if you write any programming language also, right, it can give some kind of it will be legibly formatted. So in the Notepad++, when we copied the data and when we checked it manually, somewhere we found some kind of special character, somewhere it got stuck, right, and then we removed that one somehow, right, we found it. And so for that purpose only, in Python we have some regular expression, we have something called regular RE package. We will discuss about RE also as part of natural language processing. Okay, I'll teach you the NLP part also. RE stands for regular expression. This is very important. When time permits, we can also watch some videos, and YouTube also you can see it, or some blogs also. Probably I'll send you the links also, right? You can start explore whenever time permits, right? You can explore, because this is very much helpful, using which you can perform any kind of string related operations, right? You can remove the dollar, or you can, I don't know how many of you worked with awk commands, AWK, in Linux or any Unix flavor, right? So this awk command, right, using which you can perform lot of formatting. You can write with less number of code. You can perform lot of the string related operations or any kind of operations. Okay, awk is very much helpful. So likewise, right, what you can do is you can do some define the pattern, and then do a lookup on your column. If the column has the pattern something similar to this, then display only that records. That in that case your job is very easier, right? Oh, is this why this column is not getting converted as an integer data type? Okay, we know where the issue is. We can remove that or delete that record or update that value with some meaningful value, right? So regular expression and string related functions, right, are available. So using which you can perform this kind of operation, right? You can address this kind of. See, one is data imputation and also data cleaning related issues, like the value column or the value column, right? Invoice value, order value column got converted mistakenly as object data type. Since that column got converted as object data string data type, you cannot perform any arithmetic operation, because your manager is asking what is the profit or revenue after tax. Before tax, what is the revenue? After tax, what is the revenue? In that case, you need to perform some kind of arithmetic operation. Just because your value column got converted as a string data, you cannot do that. So you need to do that kind of cleaning also, right? So data cleaning, or they say scrubbing, okay? Data scrubbing, data cleaning, both of the same time. And then what you do is you need to do some kind of discretization. And talking about the common data pre-processing tasks. What is discretization? Which is nothing but binning, which is nothing but bucketing. Different people use different terminologies, right? Binning, bucketing, right? So this is also, say for example, you have an income column or salary column. You want to find out all you are interested in which all customers are high income customers, medium income, low income. So in that case, what you do is you need to find out the customers falling in so and so salary range. Based on the salary range, what you are doing, you are defining whether they are high, medium or low. In that case, you are creating a new column called the potential customers or income group, right? The income group is a categorical variable. So in that case, what you are doing is, based on the salary range, you are defining which all customers are falling in which range of the salary, right? So based on which you define, oh, this customer is high income, this customer is low income, this person is medium income group, right? So that is also, we do it for right? We do it as part of data pre-processing activity. We call that as a discretization. And then apart from this, we, like I said, right, type conversion, right? So we need to perform data type conversion, right? So sometimes, right, the date column, like I said, this is a type conversion, right? This is type conversion, example for type conversion. And then we need to do some kind of feature extraction. See, in the case of machine learning world, we don't call columns or variables. Instead of saying column, we call that as a feature. Remember that in machine learning, we don't call the columns or variables as variables or columns. Instead, we call that as a feature. Okay, we do some kind of feature extraction. How do you do feature extraction? For example, right, I'm going to, based on the existing column, you are deriving a new column. It is also called a derived column. Derived feature. Feature, henceforth, if I say feature, it refers the column name, derived column. For example, I have day column, I have month column, and I have year column. So here what I do is, since it is a order day, right? So here I put order day because I have multiple date columns are there in my data set, and I have other columns like shipment day and shipment month and shipment year. These are all called your derived feature, right? So derived feature. And also you have as I mentioned, right, one hot encoding. You need to do one hot encoding, and we write some people they call it label encoding. Two types of encoding at the high level. One is one hot encoding, other one is label encoding. The classic example is gender, right? So for male we replace all the text value male by 1 and female by 0. So now the question is, why should I replace the male by 1? Why should I replace female by 0? Can't I leave it as it is? No, because the machine learning model, right? Most of the machine learning model dictates all the features are supposed to be in numerical data type.
This is mapping, no, sir?
Yeah, we can say mapping also, but the term we use it, right? The encoding, right? If somebody says encoding, right, you need to remember this one. Label encoding and one hot encoding. One hot encoding I don't want to discuss now. You will be overwhelmed. Okay. First understand what is labeling. You have a gender column. Wherever male is there, you replace that by 1, and wherever female is there, you replace that by 0. Yeah, you can use map function. In Python we have a map function, or you can simply use if-else condition in Python. We have something called if-else function that is available in R, which is very robust, okay, and also very easy to write your control structure using if-else, okay. You don't have to write too many lines of code, okay. So to summarize, what we do is we will address any outliers in your data set. We will address it. Second one is perform data imputation by identifying the missing values, and also we perform type conversion and other cleaning activities, like I said, right, dollar, comma, some special characters, we clean that. And also in case of any duplicate records, you remove it. So when this duplicate records can happen? Can someone tell me when will this can happen? Duplicate records. Supposing what will happen, right? In the case of production environment, the jobs will be running 24/7, especially when it comes to the larger organization, right? Lot of jobs they would have scheduled between 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. run. This job has to start. They use different schedulers. Okay, we have something called, now there is a scheduler called Airflow. Right, this is gaining a lot of popularity, scheduler. Okay, and I could see here LinkedIn, right, my juniors and other people, they did certification around Airflow also, right? So scheduler. So in the scheduler, they schedule, hey, this job has to be run between so and so time, and this job has to be run so and so time. Based on the priority, right? They would have scheduled the jobs. Sometimes the job can fail it, right? So what will happen is, mistakenly the operation guy, the job would have failed. For example, you have a table called, right, or you have a data set called sales data set, sales week 01. This data has to be copied to another table. It is not simply copying the data from here to another one. Okay, sales Staging, you have staging environment, staging cells 01. They will not simply copy it. What they do is, before copying it here, they will do some kind of filtering. Okay, week 01 is, or they do some kind of aggregation, right? So region wise, category wise, what is the sales, right? So, or quarter wise, region wise, category wise, what is the sales? That aggregated value will, or they use something like AGG, something like AGG, some. They do some kind of aggregation, and also they do some kind of cleaning, everything, and then they load it here. This data set will have aggregated data. So what will happen is, this data, sometimes what will they do, right? They simply copy this data before aggregation. Some cases what they do, simply they copy it to the staging area, right? Staging area, and then let's this is not a staging area, this is some kind of landing area. Okay, so in this area what will happen is, they simply copy the data as it is, because they cannot take this data directly from their system. It is a read only file, you need to copy it here, right? So in that case, after you load the data, right, and then only, right, you need to perform some kind of aggregation, because when you perform aggregation on this data directly, right, let's say this data set has been used by multiple other transactions, multiple other jobs. In that case, if you run multiple jobs against this data set, it will cause too much of bandwidth issue, but there will be a bandwidth issue, right? So in the hence, to overcome the bandwidth issue, simply copy to the staging area. And then what they do is, they apply the aggregation logic on this one, because aggregation is an expensive operation. It involves too much of IO, everything, right? So what they do is, on this table they perform aggregation, and then they load it here. So now the issue is, the data, as per the scheduler, right, between 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. it has to copy this data. Your job has to copy this data and load it here. While loading it, it got failed. The issue is, it partially loaded the data, and let's after 1 million records, 0.5 million records got loaded, and then it got failed. Had it not loaded the entire data, it would have been better, right? So partially it loaded the data and got failed. So this guy, operation guy, right, he is getting an alert message, and what he does is, he simply restarts the data. Again it loads the 1 million records, already 0.5 million records, so 1.5 million records got loaded. You cannot have primary key, foreign key. Reason is, if you have primary key, foreign key, this is not a table, it is a flat file, number one. Even if you have primary key, foreign key, right, it will reduce your performance, loading performance, okay? It will increase your cycle time, loading cycle time. So what they do is, they remove. This guy blindly, restart the job. Already 0.5 million record got loaded. Since he got alert message saying that job failed, simply restart this. Again, the job runs, it loads. This time it got succeeded, but 1 million recorded got loaded in addition to the 0.5 million records. This 0.5 million which got loaded already is a duplicate records, right? You need to remove the duplicate records. So in that kind of situation, you will have some kind of duplicate records, right? You need to check everything, and also you do some kind of audit balancing, something like after you load this data from year to year, or the number of records in this data set is same as this one. After loading this, it is not matching, then you decide, oh, something went wrong, right? As part of the ETL job itself, they take care of everything, okay? In some cases, yes, as a data scientist from our side, we should also make sure that there are no duplicate records. So one hot encoding, label encoding. Label encoding is simply, you have only two categories are there. Simply replace that by some numerical value. The reason is, machine learning algorithm work with only numerical values, okay? And one hot encoding, will explain it later. And type conversion, discretization, these kind of common operations that we perform it. Data pre-processing. See, probably you can also, what you do, right, you can create your own package, create a package in Python, so that you can contribute to the open source also, right? You can say, hey, you can take my package, import my package, it does the common pre-processing related task, right? All the user has to do, take your package and simply pass the data set, it has to do all these kind of analysis, right? You can do something like that, but it depends on the business also. But still, they can use your package on top of your package. They can write another functions specific to their business to validate whether data is the processed data is in compliance with their the expectations. These are the common data pre-processing activities we do it. Fine. Hey, we will take 10 minutes time. Sorry, I was I just missed the time. You can have your lunch or something like coffee or tea, right? And then we'll start by 9:30. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Right? Okay, fine. 9:30 will start. Okay, just take a small break. Okay, 10 minutes break, and then we'll continue the rest of the thing in all. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, fine. So can we continue? I hope all of you are back, right?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, fine. So okay. So what we will do is.
Your voice is somewhat low actually, Satya.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I kept my mic a little far. So how is it now? Yeah, it can, it will
better
have
now.
it will have an impact on my recording quality also. Good that you told me. Yeah, if you have any issues, right, like this, please tell me. Right, good. So okay, so now we will use one simple data set, right, and with that data set, we'll see how to create a data frame. Okay. Usually what we do is in R, right, we clean the environment by removing the variables. So you know what is a variable and how to create a variable both in Python and R. We discussed about this in the past sessions. How do I delete a variable in Python? Del, right? So we use a del command in Python, right? So del variable name, right? So variable. But in R we have something RM function. Inside the function you need to specify the variable name. Suppose I'm using a variable m, right? So you can specify. Likewise, you can remove the variable. See, the traditionally what we do is before you start importing any data or say, right, you clean your environment by removing all the variables or data set that got cached in your environment. Okay. So I'm using RM function list these variables. I know very well these. Right, whatever the other cached values in my memory, let it be there, but only these three things are not relevant to me, or these three variables, remove only these three variables, or right, or if you simply specify like this, it will remove all the cached values in your memory. Okay. So next what we do is, right, let's take this simple example. Right, I use set working directory. We discussed about set working directory and get working directory. Using set working directory, we can enforce the RStudio, my GUI, right, RStudio, to point to this folder by default. Okay, and if I wanted to check where my RStudio is currently pointing it, use get working directory. Yes, currently my RStudio ID is pointing to this folder. Very good. The next step is I'm going to read this file. I don't know if this file is there. Okay, it is good. It is there. Score1.csv. So now I'm going to select score here. It has some values. And how do I check the columns or structure of this data type? Sorry, this data frame. str, using which you can find out the data type for all the columns, and the value is also at a high level, right? You can see it, and also you can at a first
So
glance.
that T means header equal to T you have given, right? What is that actually?
What is that?
In line number 10, you have given read.csv and you have put score.csv. Like header equal to T means top row that you mean.
No, yeah. So see, okay, yeah, good. So see here, header is true in the sense, right? You want to display the data along with the, or read the data along with the header. So T is nothing but true, right? True. Instead of writing true, right? We discussed about this one also, right? The logical value. Instead of using true, you can specify T also. The short form of true is
Okay,
T,
got it.
right, display the header along with the data. Okay, if you say false, it will not display the header, it will simply display the values, right? So good, so that's a good question. Okay, fine. So now we just checked the data type and for each columns, and then the values also at a high level we could see that okay, most of them are integer value, fine. We don't see any odd values here and we don't see any missing values here, fine. Okay, next what you can do is you have something called summary function is available. Summary function will give you the 5 number summary. Along with that, you have a 6 number summary, right? It gives you the 6 numbers for each and every column. Here student ID, minimum, maximum, but ideally, logically, applying 5 number summary on the student ID column doesn't make any sense, right? So okay, the next one you can ignore it, and then you can see this one, the English one and math one. In English, the minimum mark scored by the student is 30 and maximum mark is 80, and then the median is 66. And then first quartile and third quartile, if you write 52 to 670, right? So the IQR is 70 minus 50 to 18, fine. And here the math and science and all the subject, in all the subjects, all these columns, it gives us the 6 number summary. Fine, this is fine. Okay, and the next one is, yeah, we will see, how. So this is how you can read a CSV file this is how we can create a data frame. Okay, so read.csv, and we have another set of read dot and read dot. If you press tab, right, you don't have to press tab, and the list box will display here CSV to file table format, right? So in the table format creates the data from it, in which uses corresponding lines and variables to fields in the file. And then we have likewise, right, different types of files. You can read dot table will also be there, read dot table, and f table is there, and fixed width table, right? So f table is fixed width table, and read dot table is available. Now what is read dot table? When will you use read dot table? One second, this one you will be using it for if you have space between one column to another column, right? And right, so file in a table format which creates data from which case, so in this case, if there is a space between one column to another column, right, you can use read dot table. Likewise, different types of files are. Let me see, JSON is available. JSON, for that you need to use some other package. See, just because you don't have the JSON file format function, right, to read a file, JSON file in OR, since it is not available, that doesn't mean you cannot do. There are a lot of packages are available in Python. Unlike Python, in OR you have a lot of packages are available to read different formats of data set. So at this moment, you understood how to create a data frame in Python read underscore CSV, but in Python you need to import a package, and then you need to specify the alias name pd.read underscore CSV. Here you don't have to specify, you don't have to import any package, and you don't have to prefix the function by the package name and all. It is pretty straightforward. Okay, read.csv, but read.csv is very, very slow when it compares to data.table. Okay, data.table is much faster. It was kind of like like your Dask in Python. Okay, Dask we did not see it, right? We'll show it in the next session. Okay, when we start do the machine learning, right, we'll show you that one. We'll take some huge files and we will see how Dask is really fast, all the things, right? We'll do some kind of benchmarking. Read.csv, right? So now we can check the data type of score. How can you find the data type? Class function in Python type in OR the classes. See, data.frame. All we did was we simply read this file, and then we stored this file content into a variable called score. Since we are using read.csv to read this file, and when you assign the output of this one into a variable, this variable automatically becomes data dot frame, like Python pandas. Right, only the syntax is different in pandas, right? Read underscore CSV use it, but here read dot CSV. It is pretty straightforward. Okay, next what we will do is, we did not discuss about if else and all, right? So if the condition is true, see, but here what we do is we use curly braces, like C language, Java, we use curly braces to specify the block of code in your if control structure, right? There is a function called is numeric. So this 30 is a numeric data type, right? So by default, though it is an integer value, or assigns the numeric data type to a variable when you assign it, right? When you assign any number or integer value to a variable, the default data type assigned to that variable is numeric. So we are using a function is numeric. Yes, it is a numeric, right? So since if true, right? Since this condition is true, and the statement inside this block will get executed, because this block is meant for if condition. But if you want to use if else, you need to type else immediately after this curly brace. Okay, if you write it in the next line, it will throw an error. So that this is the syntax for that. Okay, if the boolean expression is true, then execute this one, right? And then see, here I close the curly braces. This whatever is there inside, right, within this curly braces, right? These statements are intended. These statements will get executed if this condition is true. Else, right, these statements will get executed. The block of code that belongs to else condition will get executed. But the else has to be written followed by this curly braces, right? So the immediately after the if conditions block of code, you need to, if you write it in the next line, it will throw an error. Okay, that is the only thing you need to remember it. So let's take a simple example. Truth is not found. So look here. So the truth, simply look here. Here what I did, I use a string here directly, right? Character value, and then percentage in percentage. If you want to check any string value, you need to use this operator. This string value is there in my vector or not, right? Existence check. We are checking whether the string is available here or not. Supposing, let's say I am going to change it to small case, and if I execute this, found, truth is found, right? Or is also case sensitive, right? Or is case sensitive like other languages. This is simple if else condition, and for loop is same as other thing, right? In Python also the same thing, right? So but here letters, you have a something called letters function is available. So if you execute this one, you can see ABCD letters 1, 4. If you want to display the alphabet letters, right, between some ranges, we can specify it here. This one with this I created a vector, and I want to iterate the values that are stored in a vector using for loop, same as Python, but only difference is in Python we use colon to specify the block of code, whereas here we use curly braces like other programming language. And also we have while loop, right? While loop is also same as the Python and other languages, only difference is right. So here, right, R is somewhat similar to other programming languages like C and Java when it comes to the looping loop structures. Okay, here while here also, right, you need to initialize your counter value, and then only you can, right, you can iterate the value. Only when the condition is true, the code block will get executed, whereas for is not like that, right? So it will execute the loop as long as the values get iterated, right, here. And next one is, see, the score data set. I see you the core score.csv file earlier, right? We ingested it using our read.csv function, and then we assign it to a score variable. That score variable is my data frame. Now let us use some for loop with the data frame directly. Okay, if I use head of score, what will happen? The top 6 records will get displayed, right? So what I do is, how do I access a specific column in a data frame? Suppose I want to display English 1 alone. How can I do that? How can I access this column? What is the data frame name? Score, isn't it? This capital S. No, yes, capital S, right? If I give capital S, score, this is my data set. If I want to read as per the value from a specific column, you need to specify dollar. After, see, I just specify dollar, it automatically display the columns that belong to this data frame. Supposing I want to read the value from this column, this is how you can access a specific column from a data frame. You need to specify the column name, prefixing with the data frame name followed by the dollar. This is how you can access a specific column in your data frame. Fine. So now what I do is,
Is there any way to provide some 2 different columns, or it's only way that we need to specify only one column?
Yeah, we will see that. Okay, we will see how to slice the data frame like how we did it in pandas. Okay, little later we will see it. Okay.
Sure.
So yeah, fine. So now what I'm going to do is how to use the for loop. For example, I wanted to create a new column in this data frame. How many columns are there? 5 columns are there. I want to create a new column here. How can I do that? Simply the data frame name dollar specifies the new column name. Okay, and then what I do is assign NA to this column. So in this case, look here. Fine. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check. Yes, the new column got added. But this column, entire column of this data set, right, has any in it. That is missing values. Fine. The next thing is what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a for loop. This for loop, what it does is, those students score is less than 40, for them the rank will be given as C, and those students the mark is less than 60, they are B, and rest of them will be assigned class A, right? So basically we are creating some ranking, we are assigning some rank, right, or class to the students based on this condition, right? If score is less than 40 and we are assigning this value, right? So here for I in 1 to n row, what is n row? How do I know how many number of rows are there in my data set? N row function, right? So n row will give you the number of records in a table. How do I check the number of rows and columns in a data set? Which function? Dim function. 21 rows and 6 columns are there, right? N row gives you the number of rows in a data set. Here what I do is, to start from the first row to till the end of the row, I want this loop to iterate. Okay, for this data frame. So what is the score? Score is 21, right? So 1 to 21, right? For each and every record, you go and check whether the overall percentage, this one, right? With the overall percentages less than 40, those students scored less than 40 in overall percentage, you assign them rank class C. That is the logic. Let us see if I execute what happens. And if I see, you have something called view function is also available. If the data set is very small, you can use view also. Look here, the V is capital here, right? Other students in the batch, right, previous batch, they say, sir, view is not at all working. The V is supposed to be capital letter. Okay, look here, it shows something like, Excel sheet. See here, it assigned the class now, because based on the condition, the student scored less than 60, right? Hence B, class B, and this student scored more than 60, right? A, and this student is B, this student is C, because he scored less than 40. So we create, this
but
is
yeah.
called your derived column. Yeah, tell me.
If you are, there are three different conditions, right? Less than 40, less than 60, and remaining will be considered as a class,
Yeah.
right? See, the 58 also, sorry, the 40 or 38 also comes under less than 40, and it will also comes under less than 60. So in this case, right, how it is managing to group
See,
it?
that's what, in the if condition itself, right? It checks. It is less than 40. First it checks, right? Those people's marks are less than 30. It will assign them C, right? And then, like you said, right, 58. Yeah, so okay, I understood what you're, so here we did not use and condition, right? You can use and condition also. You can try that also, right? If the condition is this and if the condition is this, so range of values. If those students scored between 40 to 41 and 60, right? Above 40 and less than 60, we can write it this way also. But since the first condition if, right, so here itself it validates, it's assigned this, and for example 58 is not less than 40, obviously it comes here. Yes, this less than, right? You got it, right?
So if you are, it is working fine if you are giving it in order way. Suppose if I'm giving the second condition is the first thing, right? So will it work?
It will get confused, right? First
Yeah,
it
that is
will,
right.
yeah, so that's the reason why, yeah, what you are saying is correct, right? So we need to make sure that the order also here, right? The conditions whatever you are specifying, right? First you check the less than 40, and the else you do this one, or else like this. But if you specify less than 60 and then else if you put 40, right, it will get confused. The logic is not correct. Semantic error, that is called the semantic error. So that's why you should be a bit cautious. Yeah. See, instead of writing like this, right? So in OR, there is a if else function is available. It is very robust. It is very, very robust. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reassign this. Okay, I'm going to make this column empty. Now I made it empty. So look here, with this simple logic, I'm going to okay, I shouldn't have removed it. Okay, because I created a new column here, right? Class 1. Okay, no problem. So here, look here. So B, A, B, C. Instead of using this many number of lines of code, right? Simple if else is enough. If else condition, what it does is, first you need to specify the condition. If the condition is true, put C. Else, in the else part also we are using if else, because nested if conditions are there, right? So if else I am going to use it here. The score is less than 60, put B, else A here. See, in this if else itself, right? This is your else part actually. In the else part also I am putting if else, because it is a nested if else condition, right? So in the with this less number of lines of code, we can implement the same logic, right? So you don't have to write too many lines of code. That is the reason why, right? The management or the customers, they, as part of the review process, code review, they check how effectively we have written the script, right? If you write something like this, right, it takes longer time and so many lines of code. Why you are writing like this? Why can't you write it like this, right? So when you implement your business logic, you come up with one or two approaches and then validate which approaches requires less number of coding and which approach is much faster, right? The execution cycle time should also be less, right? Just because this if else is very less number of code to be written, and if the execution cycle time is more, then it is not acceptable. But ideally if you write less number of code, right, it will be more effective, right? It will be much faster. Okay, multiple conditions in the if or if else, right? So here itself we can, if less than, like you asked, right, my friend Suresh, Satish, right? So if this person is less than 40 or less than 60, right, you put C, right? If else, if the overall percentage is less than 60 or less than 80, right? You can put BRE. You just validate this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another column to verify if this logic is correct or not, right? Whether it has correctly. So what I'm going, you don't have to type the command again and again. Just press up arrow more than once till you get your command which you need to. But here, look here, right? What happened here? Is this correct? It should be B, correct. Class 1 is B and class 2 also supposed to be B, fine. But here what happened? It's supposed to be A, right? So what is the overall percentage? This person's mark is 64, but it still gives us B. There is a mistake here, right? So this is an assignment for you, right? Use multiple conditions and try to implement the same logic here, right? But if I use, this is for OR, right? And is ampersand. You need to use ampersand here, okay? And here ampersand, right? So try with ampersand and OR also and see how you can implement this, right? If else itself you can check more than one condition. Ideally this is more than sufficient. It's very simple one and straightforward. If the percentage scored by the student is less than 40, or the percentage of the students, right, those scored less than 40, they are C. Else those people scored less than 60, their score is B, or else CA. Very straightforward, right? If you want to try with multiple conditions also, you can try it out for your learning purpose, okay? That's the reason why I left it here. And then a function, how to create a function in OR. So in the case of OR, you need to use a reserved word called function. In Python, how did we create a function? User defined function, def, right? The reserved word is def, and then you can specify your function name. Let's say if your function name is square, right? You need to do like this. But in OR, the reserved word is function. Instead of def, you need to use function. But on the right, followed by the function, you need to specify the arguments. And followed by this, you need to specify the curly braces. Inside the curly braces, you can specify whichever statements that needs to be executed, right? You can specify it here. But this function, you are going to assign it a variable. This is how we create a function, okay? Simple example is, look here, square, right? The reserved word is function and the argument is x here, x square, right? I'm squaring the whatever value I have it, I need to square it. Okay? So I assign this function to a variable called square. Now the function name is square, right? Square. Let's execute this one. For example, this is an inbuilt function. Sum, right? Sum is a built-in function. Sum of e gives me the vector as the sum, and average value of this vector is 3. Fine. This is the built-in function. This is the user-defined function. Supposing I am executing this, and square of let's the v if I give, square of v if I give. So each and every value get squared. 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, and 4 squared is 16, 25. This is how you can create a function, right? And here I mentioned square of false. If I specify false here, right, it throws, it is an error here, right? So because if I specify true here, it gives me 1 here, right? So true or false, because you need to specify the correct values here, otherwise it will not return the proper value. Though you pass the value like true or false, right, it returns something like 0 or 1. If it is false, it returns 0. If it is true, it returns 1 by default. But it is not doing any arithmetic operation. 0 squared is 0, 1 squared is 1 only, right? So true is 1 and 0 squared is 0 only, right? So that is what is required here. That is what is happening here, okay? So, okay, so to create a data frame, you can use read.csv or read.csv2 or read.table function to read any data set, and if you assign the data read by this read.csv to a variable, it will automatically become a data frame. But is there any way if I can create a data frame with static value? Yes, like in pandas, here also we can create the data frame. See, most of the time, right, we'll be using this function also in pandas, here also. See, in pandas the equal command is the same thing, right, data frame, but the D is capital and F is capital letter in pandas, but here all small letter. Okay, data dot frame, and inside this I specified a vector A and I specified a vector B. Okay, and if I square this one, what happens? It creates two columns, right? This vector become a column. This vector value, the values in this vector become part of the column A, and the values in this vector become part of column B. But if you don't specify A and B, what will happen? What will happen? It will not have any column name, right? It will not have any column name. For example, if I remove this one, it will have some something like, some vector kind of thing, it will get it. So look here, the column name is 1 2 3 4, something like that, right? So it doesn't look meaningful. Hence what I did, I assigned a vector to a variable called A. So for this one, the column name is, this is called your metadata, A and B, right? Some meaningful name to this column. So here I will tell you this one. Yeah, this is what he was asking me, our friend Karthik. Let me see if I can use less than and hyphen. So Karthik, you got
It was same thing.
what do you mean by same thing? 1 second. Oh, okay, 1 second. Here we'll put y, and here I'll print y, right? So here let me just comment this. I'll comment this also. Okay, let's see if both of them are same or different. What is the difference between these two? If I use equal sign, right, for this vector, the values in this vector get assigned to the column A, right? A 1 2 3 4 and B 5 6 7 8. But instead of using equal sign, if I use this one, right, it is not getting assigned correctly. Can you observe this? So to answer to your previous session question, so can I use equal sign or can I use less than hyphen to assign a value to a variable? If you wanted to assign a value to a variable directly, you can use less than hyphen. The combination of less than hyphen you can use. See, if it is a straightforward thing like A1 is equal to 10, right, you can assign it directly like this. You can use this assignment operator, less than hyphen. But if you are creating a data frame or list, right, and inside this data frame, if you want to assign a vector or list of values to a variable, right, so that variable is going to be your column here, right? So it will not get assigned correctly here. This is what I was telling, right? Inside the data.frame or list, if you try to assign a values of vector or list to a variable, right, it is not assigning it properly. Look here. So right, Ideally it's supposed to be A like this, right? This one's supposed to be B. It is not doing that way. So that is the one thing you need to keep in mind, right? So whenever you use data.frame or list, don't use less than hyphen. Directly you can use equal sign. Fine. So this is so now you understood how to create a static value. Supposing I have a situation, right? I have two vectors like this, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. I wanted to convert these two, or I want to create a table like structure, right? For these two, I want to combine these two and put it in a table kind of structure, right? That kind of situation, data.frame is very much helpful. Sometimes when you programmatically write some, let's say you are using a function, you do a lot of, you are implementing some kind of, you are applying some business logic, you are transforming the data. The output will be something like a list or some vector, okay? But you wanted to see the output in the table format. We'll be using data.frame. So we'll be using this one most of the time. Even in pandas, we'll be using this one. I'll show you practically, right, when we are supposed to use data.frame directly, okay? See, the whole idea here is, if you convert these two vectors into data frame format, you can perform any kind of arithmetic operation, and you can do column to column comparison, right? Minimum, maximum, minimum value in column A, minimum value in column B, or average in column A and column B are the same. The average of two columns are same or not, right? So in one go you can do it. If you have multiple vectors, you can use data.frame combine. You have a combination of vector as well as list, you can use data.frame, right? And this is how you can statically assign the value to data frame, or if you want to convert the vectors into data frame, you can use data.frame, okay? See, in the interviews, the online test, they might ask you, like even in Python, right, how do you convert an array into list? How do you convert an array into list in Python? How many of you remember it? We have something called flatten, right? Flatten, Flatten. Flatten, if you give array, right, it will become the list, okay? So you need to know from how to convert from one data structure to another data structure, right? You need to know that one. So the next week, before I start machine learning, we will have probably 1 hour session for that, okay? Some review, okay? Some interview like questions, okay? Or the online test related kind of questions, right? In Python. So you need to tell me which command can be used in both or in. I think we have some more topic in R. Next Sunday only we can start the machine learning, okay? So it is already 10:10. Okay, you must be tired, right? So what I will do is I will share this script also. You can take a look at this, okay? The for loop, while loop, everything is same. Only thing is the syntax is different. Here also you can see apply function, right? What is the difference between apply and apply map in Python? Pandas we used it, apply and apply map. Map function we discussed it. Reduce function we discussed it. What is apply function? Apply function you can apply on a series as well as a data frame. Whereas apply map you can apply only on the data frame. Yeah, very good, superb, right? So when will you use map function? To perform some kind of encoding.
Or categorical.
Yeah, for a categorical variable, if you want to do some kind of encoding, you can use map function. Can I use map function like how I can use it as like apply function? I gave you one example, right? The first argument supposed to be what? Your data frame, comma, the built-in function like min or max. Can you do it that way? Just review that one, okay? And the next one is reduce function. How does the reduce function works? Supposing in my list or tuple I have 10 values, right? What happens, how the reduce function works is, it takes the first pair of the values from the I treble and then it performs the aggregation. Once the aggregation is done, it performs the aggregation it performs the aggregation with the aggregated values of the first pair with the subsequent value. Supposing you have 2, 3, 4, the 2 and 3 first pair will perform the aggregation. The output of this one will get added with the subsequent value. That is how the reduce function works. Apart from this, we have filter function is also available in pandas. We will see when we can use filter function also as part of machine learning, all the things, right? When we build the model, we'll see. So data dot frame min is equal to apply 2, 1. You can start practicing this. See, look here, I created a function, right? Using this function, see, when I use summary function, it gives me the 6 number summary. In or you don't have you don't have a function, built-in function to see the 5 number or 6 number summary along with the spread of values, right? Spread. But when you use describe in pandas, it displays the 6 number summary along with the measures of spread like range and standard deviation also it shows, right? So what you can do is you create your own custom function, include, we have something like SD stands for standard deviation, SDD of V, right? So we already created a vector by the name of V, right? As you see, this is my standard deviation. So include that one also as part of your function, and then assign all. See, look here, what is the advantage of data dot frame, right? You combine all these individual variable into a multiple column into data dot frame and return a single value. You can include standard deviation also, right? So when you apply this function on your data frame, it gives you not only the 6 number summary, also it gives you the standard deviation, or if you want the variance sigma squared, right? There is a function called VAR. Yeah, in Python also VAR is available. Here also the VAR function is available. Yes, right? So likewise you can use it. So here the apply function is also same, but it is little bit different. Okay, and here apply 2, 11. So what is 2? 2 is here 1 and 2. You remember axis equal to 0 or axis equal to 1. You can specify it whenever you use apply or right. If you perform any other column level operation or row level operation, we use 0 and 1 in pandas, whereas in OR instead of using 0 and 1 and 2. So for row level operation is 1, column level operation is 2, right? 2, 11, starting from the second column to 11th column, right? You perform column level stat. I have given stat. So what is stat? This function, user defined. How to apply a user defined function on the data frame at column level, okay? Because I am interested in only specific column, not all the rows, okay? Only specific column, not all the columns. I did some kind of the subsetting, everything I did it. And then L apply. So L apply will return the output in the form of list. Okay, and S apply will return the output in the form of vector. Okay, and then there is a function called table. With this I'm going to wrap up. Don't worry. Okay, there is a built-in for data that is available. Empty cars. In this empty cars data frame, right? MPG, miles per gallon, and cylinder is there. So table function, or okay, let us use the table function on my, what is that? My score function, right? Score dollar. Sorry, I just remove it, and score dollar. If I give it, right, for example, I want to see how many. This is just a frequency distribution. How many number of times. Ideally it is helpful to, you can apply the table function on the categorical value. Suppose you have a gender column, how many number of records are there for a female and male, it will give you that. Okay, if you apply on this one, it will be confusing thing. Okay, and T apply is, supposing you have two different columns, you apply the mean on these two columns. Okay, T apply. This gives the mean mileage for each cylinder type. See, sorry, here what happens is I have a cylinder type, right? So 4 cylinder. Some vehicles, some cars you have 4 cylinders, and luxury cars, sports cars you have 8 cylinders, right? 4, 6, 8 cylinders are for each type, right? It's kind of a subset. For each subset of the data, you take the average of this one. This is your subset, okay? You need to specify the categorical variable here. So that is what is happening here. Good at, right? So I mentioned the comment also here, right? So with that you should be able to run it. Try all these things, and subset of vectors also you can try it out, and which dot max is available. Try all these things, right? I will send you this script and this script also well ahead, okay? And here I did the data transformation, everything. See, there is something called complete dot cases. With that you can find out the duplicate records in your data set, and then we have some KNN imputation, central imputation. All these things are available. You just try all these commands. Anyhow, we are going to repeat the same thing next week, Saturday. We'll try to complete it in Saturday. And in case of data visualization, yeah, we'll try to cover probably we will have to postpone the test, right? Followed by next weekend we'll have a test, right? So next Saturday we'll complete the data frame, and we have some dplyr and data.table, and also we have data visualization, okay? Well, Saturday and Sunday it will span Sunday also, right? But Sunday will cover, I'll give you the overview about what is machine learning and what is data science, what is artificial intelligence. We'll demystify all these jargons, okay? Fine. Sorry, I took much of your time. We will continue from next, tomorrow, right? Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah,
I'm still
tomorrow.
thinking today is Sunday. Tomorrow, yeah, good, yeah. So then tomorrow we'll finish it off, majority of the thing. And Saturday we will complete the whatever the leftover part. And then Sunday we are good to start machine learning part. Sorry, I'm thinking, today itself Sunday.
We can